This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. Whenever I'm in the moment, that feeling of like, wow, I've just seen something entirely insane, something that is just off the charts, wild, I can't help but think of how Brian Wilson laid out Sloop John B. for the Beach Boys. You know, the strange trip. This is the strangest trip I've been on, huh? Well, I saw a headline tonight, and Big Daddy Omaha, the man who has a personal media attendant to make sure that he has an ice cream cone in his hand at all times, has now called the United States Federal Reserve history's greatest hedge fund. Oh, you didn't vote for a hedge fund? Oh, really? Well, guess what? One of America's best investors has declared the United States Federal Reserve the history's greatest hedge fund. Now, what's interesting about most hedge funds is there's no transparency. As an average person, you often can't invest with these hedge funds because of whatever arrangements that exist. But now, Captain Omaha has told us all that we are so fortunate to have this governmental, I guess quasi-governmental to be technically correct, quasi-governmental agency positioned essentially as the government, run by essentially the very banks that make up the bulk of Berkshire Hathaway's holdings. So, without further ado, let me play Mr. Buffett speaking to this very issue.
I think they should take Bernanke's approach, which he says he's going to keep doing it till he sees more improvement in the economy. And I think he's been mildly disappointed, not hugely disappointed, but mildly disappointed in the rate of improvement in the economy in the last few years, and therefore, just the other day, he said he's going to extend it further until he sees it. So he's not prejudging exactly when it's going to happen. He's telling you the conditions under which he'll change, and the economy is getting better. We are in an experiment which hasn't really been tried before. I mean, Fed has a $3.5 trillion balance sheet, and buying securities is usually easier than selling securities, as sometimes people find out. So we don't know how this game plays out. And just the announcement, whenever it was a few months ago, or the hint that tapering was going to occur, that had some significant market reactions, probably 100 basis points or so in the 10-year. And what will happen when they actually, if they actually try to deleverage the Fed? I mean, what has happened is the American public deleveraged and the government leveraged up through the Fed. If the Fed deleverages that in any big way, that will be a new experiment. And
but Warren, as we were talking earlier, the question is, when they do that, the economy has to be growing faster. And the piece people don't take into account is they're clear that they're going to stay there until the economy grows faster.
And he has no pressure on him. In fact, the Fed is the greatest hedge fund in history. I mean, you've got $1.1 trillion financed by currency and circulation, which doesn't cost anything, and they got about $1.8 trillion or $1.9 trillion for the banks at 25 basis points. And I mean, the Fed is going to make $80 billion or something like that. The Fed is the fourth largest contributor to the United States government's revenues that there is now. That wasn't the case a few years back, but it's 80 or 90 billion a year probably. And it is under no pressure, none whatsoever, to have to deleverage. So it can pick its time, and if you have somebody wise there, and I think Bernanke's wise, and I certainly expect his successor to be, it can be handled. But it is something that's never quite been done on this scale. It'll be interesting to watch.
It will be interesting to watch, won't it? The grand experiment. The grand experiment. He doesn't have any idea at all. Clearly, if this program didn't exist, his holdings would be in a very different position. But we've now got the greatest American investor now declaring the United States Federal Reserve the greatest hedge fund. Is the word duplicitous come to mind for anybody? I mean, is it really truly a deliberate deceptiveness on his part in behavior and speech? Like I said, I have given this man all kinds of props. Oh, you say, Covel, who are you to give this man? You know what? I'm just a guy with an opinion. But I have given him all kinds of props for being a great investor. But I tell you what, he is one master media manipulator. So, ladies and gentlemen, your options are very simple. You can trust the hedge fund that you did not know you were invested in, called the United States Federal Reserve, or you can make your own decisions. Well, hold on. Isn't there a suitability issue here? Hedge funds have to look at the suitability of their investors. Not in this case. All Americans were just put on board the hedge fund. It's patently absurd. I mean, I don't know if Mr. Buffett is just having a moment of clarity, a moment of honesty. I mean, I think he's right. It is one grand experiment. He's clearly saying he has no idea what's going to happen, how it's going to turn out. The risks, no one knows what the risks are. But you also, as an individual, can't invest in hedge funds. So you can't invest in hedge funds unless you meet certain criteria. However, you can be put into a hedge fund as a part of the government. Boy, there's some interesting webs we're weaving these days. So the question becomes, do you want to be a part of the hedge fund that is the U.S. Federal Reserve, or do you want to try a strategy on your own? And by chance, it's quite amazing. I have to pull this up, I have to cue this up. I have a strategy from another one of America's most famous investors. Oh, this is classic. Now, you might know Susie Orman as the woman that would prefer to have everybody own a house and buy and hold until the world ends. But, and I'm actually positioning this as you have a choice. I mean, I'm not going to even talk about trend following right now. You have a choice. You can either be a part of the hedge fund that Buffett was talking about, or listen to this.
Susie Orman is the two-time Emmy Award-winning host for The Susie Orman Show. She is also a best-selling author, motivational speaker, financial guru, magazine columnist, and the world's most trusted personal financial advisor. Now, she's talking numbers with us, and what you might be surprised to learn is that she is an avid fan of the charts when it comes to trading. So, Susie, it's our honor to have you talking numbers with us today. You brought along a chart that you like. Now, before we get to it, tell us how charts factor into your investment decisions.
Well, you know, I always like to see a few things. I like to see the volume that's going into a stock, and I like to see, does a stock have a pattern? Now, it probably does surprise those out there. Does Susie Orman really trade stocks rapidly? Most people would look at me, because when I talk to them, I would probably give the impression that I'm a buy and hold investor, which is true with some of my stocks, but some of my stocks I like to trade heavily. And when I do trade them heavily, I look at and see if there's a pattern. So if we look at this one stock that I am currently not in, but that has reaped me incredible rewards over the past few months, it's the stock whose symbol is ONVO, O-N-V-O. And this stock has had a habit of going from 4 to 6, 4 to 7, 4 to 9, back and forth and back and forth. And while that doesn't seem like that's a very large swing, when you're looking at a stock that's only about $4.50 a share, when it goes up a point, that's like 20%. So you're able to buy a number of shares when it's so little. So these little swings of 20, 30, 40% up and down have reaped me tremendous amounts of money over the past few months.
You know, as I listen to that comment, don't you want to see the track record? She's making all this money now as apparently a short-term trader. She positions herself as this buy and hold guru, this very level-headed whatever. And I'm not even saying whatever in a nice way, because I'm so disgusted when I even think about what Buffett said. And no one's going to call him out on the table, okay? You know, calling the United States Federal Reserve a hedge fund is disgusting. It's disgusting. And now this goofball, who has positioned herself as mom and pop, buy and hold, is now saying that she makes a ton of money off short-term trading of stocks and has cherry-picked some stock of some sort and is now telling us how it happens and that she sees a pattern that it bounces between 4 and 6 and 4 and 6. Let me let her continue because it's got to get better, right?
Currently, I'm out of the stock because once it hit 7 just a little bit ago, it had kind of broken out just a little. And I thought, you know what? I don't have enough base in there. Looking at the chart, it's probably going to pull back down. So I'm currently waiting.
She doesn't have enough base and it's probably going to pull back down. Try quantifying that one, people.
For it to come back down before I enter it again. But I do look at this chart all the time to decide when to enter and when to exit.
Okay, Organova, certainly an under-the-radar stock, not one that we often talk about.
You don't often talk about it because she just cherry-picked it out of nowhere to make up this whole story about day trading. I'm sorry for interrupting. Hold on.
For a retail investor, for the guys at home, how important is it to look at technical indicators?
Well, truthfully, I don't think the common everyday person understands stocks, knows what to do about them. So it's kind of nice when you look at a stock and you can see, is the stock trending up or is it trending down? To put all this other analysis on it is very, very difficult.
Did you hear that one? That's kind of straight out of the trend following playbook. Except, let's just pause for a second and realize that this woman has built an entire career off none of that. Continuing.
I would tell an ordinary retail investor, don't be afraid to be late to the party. And what I mean by that is if you do look at a chart and you draw a line and you can see that it's trending up, I would feel better about getting in a stock that has been trending up than a stock that is trending down and I'm trying to catch it at its very bottom, because we don't know where the bottom is. So I wouldn't use charts as the only thing. By all means, I am not a technical analysis investor. I look more at fundamentals. Are they a good area? Do they have good earnings? Do they have good management? I would look at those more truthfully than I would a chart.
Truthfully, she says. Truthfully, I'm going to tell you how I just used technical analysis and how I use charts. But now, truthfully, I'm more of a fundamental investor. So, she apparently has a system that combines the best of both worlds to end up with the Susie Orman spectacular strategy that allows you to pull some penny stock out of thin air and show you exactly how to trade it. And oh, by the way, if you're called out to say, hey, hold on, is this something for the average person? Well, no, I'm really a fundamental trader. Don't mind what I just said about technical analysis and charts, because I really don't do that, even though I just told you I do that. Does this sound like a sane person? Or does it sound like a nut job? Let me let her continue.
Understood. Susie Orman, great tips as always. Our deep thanks to Susie Orman of The Susie Orman Show. In fact, you can check out that show every Saturday. It's at 9 p.m. Eastern and Pacific.
Great tips as always. It's amazing what comes onto teleprompters, isn't it? Like, of course, that was just ad-libbed. It's literally the talking head looked up and it said, "Great tips as always, Susie Orman." Look, I don't want to sit here and have anybody say, "Well, Mike, it sounds like you're picking on the lady more than you're picking on the man." Look, I picked 2 particular excerpts for this podcast, and both of them are gross. Both of them are gross. Absolutely terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible advice for anybody. And look, most astute people, I don't know what the percentages of astute are, will hear this stuff and kind of laugh like I'm laughing. And I hope I don't sound too sarcastic or too mean or anything. I just feel like I need a drink or something. I don't even drink. I mean, seriously, right? I mean, the Buffett line, you almost just don't even know where to start with. I mean, I'm guessing I should probably go do some Google searches. He probably got all kinds of credit for saying this. And then all the people that clap like seals, when you go to like SeaWorld and the seals clap. So Buffett says, "Hey, the United States government, Federal Reserve, it's the greatest hedge fund in the world." And everyone claps and goes, "Oh, Buffett, he's wonderful. He's great, fantastic. Hey, this is fantastic. Anything he says is gospel. Doesn't matter what he says." And let me continue to put the disclaimer in there. I have all the respect for the entrepreneurial prowess of Warren Buffett. I have all the respect for the entrepreneurial prowess of Susie Orman. But at some stage of the game, isn't it time that a few people stood up and said, enough? Like, this just isn't honest discussions. This is like propaganda. It's nonsensical. It's gross. "Well, Mike, you're a little too hard." Really? Are you just too much of a wimp to say it? The greatest American investor has just declared the United States Federal Reserve to be history's greatest hedge fund. Susie Orman, the person who is everywhere in personal finance for the last 20 years, literally in a 3-minute clip, doesn't even know what she does or how she does it. And then everyone says, "Great advice as always, Susie. Next time." I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.